Welcome, and thank you for joining my DevConf talk, given that there's so many exciting options in the different tracks. The talk I'm giving today is a talk I've given at another conference in 2019 called Ruby Fuza in Cape Town. So to prepare for this talk, I just watched the previous video of the other talk. So I watched myself, but it helped me to refactor the talk a little bit, if you think of engineering, and make it a little bit better. So hopefully each time I give this talk, it's a better experience for people getting to see it for the first time. My name is Tanaka Mutakwa. I'm actually transitioning between jobs. So I accepted an offer from Swivel on Friday. So the program for the conference says I work at Names and Faces, which was where I previously worked. But I'll actually be moving to Swivel in the middle of May. And they are a tech-enabled transport service company operating in emerging markets and soon to be coming to South Africa too. Aside from that, I'm the organizer of a tech leadership meetup. We started that in 2019. And it's been growing quite a lot. We're a hybrid of in-person and online events. So if you want to check that out, go to techleadership.co.za. We're basically a community of people who are interested in tech leadership. So people who are maybe not yet leaders, but want to be leaders in the future, people who've just become leaders, or people who've been leading for quite a while. And we generally have speakers come and discuss like tech leadership topics. And we rotate that with as I said, like in person and online. And we actually have one coming next Tuesday, and it's an online one. So if you're from Joburg, then you'll be able to join. So again, techleadership.co.za if you want to check that out. I'm also writing a space on Substack called The New Developer, which is basically content for people who are just starting out their development career. So you just finished school, or you just finished studying at a boot camp, and you're trying to get into technology, working at a company. So I'm writing content that perhaps you would learn from if you had a mentor as soon as you started working. So if you go on Substack, and on substack.com, you can search for a space called The New Developer, or you can just say thenewdeveloper.substack.com to find that. So if you are just starting out in tech, you can check that out, or if you've got engineers who are just starting out in your team, you can share that with them. I occasionally also blog on mutakwa.com just about life and general stuff. And if you're on Twitter, you can follow me on General Mutakwa if you want to just discuss tech stuff and everything. My topic for the day is making the leap into tech leadership. The goal of the talk is to help you learn about transitioning from being an individual contributor in a team and taking up some form of tech leadership role. So how you can successfully do that. How I'm going to cover the talk is by discussing the common mistakes that new technology leaders make when they come from an individual contributor role into a tech leadership role. And I'll talk about those mistakes, and with each mistake, I'll talk about what it is and why it happens, and then I'll also talk about what to actually apply to avoid that mistake. But before we sort of get into the talk, I'm just going to use a bit of a sport analogy to chat about leadership. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, starting just now. And Cape Town answered the questions and got 100%. And Cape Town likes to feel that it's better than Johannesburg, so no pressure at all. The questions are very easy. It should be impossible to not get 100%. So just feel free to answer the questions as we go. So the first one is the simplest one. Who is this person? All right. And what is his biggest achievement? I didn't go to the keynote today, but if the keynote was exactly the same as the Cape Town one, then if you are listening, you would know. So what's his biggest achievement? Winning the World Cup. All right, cool. We're still on 100%. What was his role? What do you think his role was in the team winning the World Cup? What was his role for the team? Like, what sort of things did he do? Yeah? Sorry? Anything? Leadership, coaching, yeah? Training, strategy? Yes, they're all correct. Like, all correct answers. And what do you think if Rassi was actually on the field? Like, let's replace the 8th man, and let's say Rassi was on the field during that World Cup. Do you think it would have been effective? No. Why not? Why do you think he wouldn't have been effective? He's not fit. Okay. Exactly. All correct answers. Someone in Cape Town said he's out of shape, and I hoped he had been there on the day to hear that. But okay, cool. Yeah, and I don't know. Probably some of you know, some don't. But Rassi was a player himself, so at some point he actually played late 90s. So he would have been effective at that time. But his role at that time was actually to be on the field and play. So I think we get where this is going. Same thing applies in technology. When you step into a leadership role, your focus is a bit different to what it was when you're an individual contributor. How a leader is actually measured is on the output and success of their team, as opposed to their actual specific individual role. Whereas as an individual contributor, of course, you're working in a team and you want the team to be effective, but you're mainly focusing on how good you're executing the tasks you're getting given in each day. Then I want to touch a little bit on what is tech leadership actually, because I guess that's like such a broad term. In my mind, it's at any point in which your responsibilities shift from just being, again, the focus on yourself, but then anything that starts looking at the effectiveness of the people you're working around, so your team. So that can be at different organizations. There's so many different titles. Sometimes it's like the parallel titles, like engineering manager could mean the same thing as dev manager, but it's like things like CTO, senior engineer, line manager, tech lead, everything around that. Out of interest, how many people are in a tech leadership role right now? All right, and how many people are looking to get into a tech leadership role at some point in their career in the future? How many people are not in a tech leadership role and are not looking to get into a tech leadership role at any point in their life? I'm looking for the spies. Okay, cool. So, yeah, I like to get into the talk by usually starting with how typically people, well, it's getting better now, but how people used to get leadership roles in tech teams. So you're the best engineer on the team. You're the person who solves all the complicated problems, all the complicated bugs that everyone's trying to run away from. They go to you, and you somehow are the genius who solves them. When someone's trying to build a complicated feature and they get stuck, they tend to come to you. So you are the expert on the team. You're the person who's really good. And some senior manager or some senior management people notice that this person is really good. We need to make them the leader of the team. So they call you into a room on one day. They tell you, you know, we've been impressed by your work. You're the genius. You're great. We want to make you the leader of the team. So they give you a title. Hopefully they give you some salary increase with that. And they give you the ceremonial handshake and tell you from tomorrow, you're now leading this team going forward. And you leave the room excited. You're like, yeah, from tomorrow, everyone's going to be listening to me. All my ideas are the ones that are going to be implemented. Let's go. So you come back the next day and you start executing on your new leadership role. But what happens is a couple of weeks in or a couple of months in going forward, you start to notice that you're actually not enjoying that role. You're not great at it at all. The people who you're leading are also not happy about how you're leading them, and they're starting to either want to leave the company or are constantly complaining about you. And the reason this happens is because the actual skills that kind of got you promoted into a leadership or management role don't actually overlap with the skills that are required when you're now in a leadership and management role. A lot about leadership and management starts to become about people, solving conflicts when people are fighting in the team, hiring, all the strategic discussions, talking to business stakeholders or to customers, being the face of the team and all that, and less about actually your execution on individual tasks. There is a bit of an overlap, but it's actually a little bit. So the role is very different. It's actually a role change when you switch and shift over into a leadership role. So now we get into the mistakes that I was speaking about. So I'm going to discuss mistakes one by one. A lot of new tech leaders make those mistakes if they haven't been prepared well enough about what that role change is. And then I'll talk about why that mistake is bad and what leaders should actually do. So the very first one is the obvious one, which is coding full-time, because it's the default thing that you're actually very good at. It's the reason you got promoted into that role, and it's what actually gives you satisfaction. So once you start working in a leadership role, you end up, and once you start struggling, as humans, when we tend to struggle with something, we kind of always fall back to things we're good at. So you start struggling with all the people stuff and everything, all the overwhelming responsibilities that come with leadership, then you just grab your laptop and back yourself in a corner and start churning out new features or solving those complex bugs you always used to handle. But the problem is then no one is dealing with like the whole team stuff, like who's building the culture and building the right environment for engineers to be happy and work in, who's helping the engineers grow, who's solving conflicts in the team, who's communicating with all other stakeholders that are interested in the team. Everything is like at a full stop there. And then again, like we're saying with Rasi, if he was on the field, then nothing is happening on the rest of the team. So your priorities should change. Coding and everything, and I'll talk about it when I talk about the next mistake, you can still be involved, but you should shift to team first and everything around that. And once that's all looking good and everything is working, if you do have slack time, then you can be involved in the coding side. And usually for leaders, it's usually tasks that are not on the critical path, because you end up holding up the team if you are working on the critical path stuff. So it's usually to be involved so you still have context, which kind of falls into the next mistake. And with this mistake, there's a disclaimer in that if it's not going to apply to everyone, because some companies, as they get bigger, you actually can't code if you're in a leadership role. There's just too much on your plate from a leadership and culture and people perspective. But there are places where the company is still small enough you can be involved in the code. And then also some companies are very technical to the point that like even as you go up the ladder for the leadership, up to the CTO, they're still executing and writing code and building stuff. But the idea here was just to say, if you are in a space where you can still be involved in the code, it's really beneficial to not then completely throw it away and only do the leadership stuff, because it helps you to understand what your engineers are also going through. And it helps you to build trust with them because they know you understand their space and how they work and everything. So you still understand like the problems they face, and you can also improve their processes and everything because you're also being able to contribute and work with them in the trenches. Another mistake is around assuming that now you've been made the leader, then you're the one who's responsible for making all the technical decisions. So yes, you are the genius, like, okay, now everyone has to listen to you. You go and draft up all the plans and hand over to people to just implement. But of course, this has two major problems with it. The first one is you become the bottleneck for the team. So if you are now busy with a whole lot of other leadership stuff, you're in other meetings, everyone has to wait for you to come back and make the hard technical decisions so they can actually continue working. So your team is stuck because you're the bottleneck. And the second one, which is actually more important, is if you make all the important and critical decisions, then you don't create room for your team to actually improve and grow, because then people are not learning how to tackle those difficult things, and you're taking all that responsibility. So it's important to actually build a team that's empowered to be able to move forward and have the autonomy to make all the decisions without you as a leader being there. And I remember reading at some point that one of the best ways to almost track or a vision for yourself as a leader is that when you've really done well with a team, you can almost remove yourself from the team and the team can go on forever without you. So that should almost be your goal when you're trying to set up a good environment for your team. And then the next mistake that commonly happens is around forgetting to cultivate team culture, not taking care of your people and expecting to leave that to someone else. And this happens because as an individual contributor, you're so used to the idea that culture is built by someone else. It somehow exists. You're on a team and somehow you think like, how come we're so happy as a team? How come we've got all these benefits? And where do these things come from? But what you don't realize is someone in the background is thinking about setting up that culture. They almost see like the team as a product, and they set up the culture and all the benefits and everything and a safe space for everyone to work in. And also they address all the problems that come up in the background. Sometimes if you're an individual contributor, you see maybe two engineers having don't like each other and are having conflict on the team. Then maybe a few weeks later or months later, you see it's been resolved, and you think, oh, maybe it just took care of itself. But again, you don't know the background conversations that are happening with the leader or the manager in that team. They are taking care and being responsible for that. So when you get into that leadership space, don't expect things to just happen and someone else will take care of them. You are now that person who's responsible for setting up that culture and taking care of problems as soon as they happen. Talking only about technology, again, something that falls from the habits of being an individual contributor. You're on a team with other individual contributors. Lots of your conversations are about technology, the complexities of the things you're building. Those are the fun conversations anyway. It's like, oh, like what tech are we going to use? How did we solve this problem? And that's a lot of the conversations you talk about. And maybe a few times you will interact with people outside of the team and talk about those topics, but that's mostly left to other people. But once you become a leader, you become the face of the team. So people approach you to find out, where's the team at? What's the team solving right now? People want to understand when the team is like maybe working on a complicated thing, but they want to understand what that means. And usually that means explaining those concepts to people who are non-technical in a simple and easy way for them to understand. So you would need to learn as a leader to be able to talk about technical things to non-technical people in a way they can understand. And you need to be able to learn written and spoken communication in a simple and easy way. So don't default to sort of locking yourself up in like, oh, I only talk tech because I'm an engineering leader. Actually, you need to open up to now be able to speak to people outside of technology even more and communicate well with your team itself. So you need to be able to balance both sides. And then this is related to how overwhelming engineering leadership can be. So you can easily end up in a place where you're constantly reacting because you're saying yes to everything that gets thrown at you, and your time management gets thrown out the window. So think of this as a typical scenario for an engineering leader's day. You wake up, you're still at home, you receive messages that there's like some major bug in production that like the whole business is stopped. So you quickly get ready, you head into the office. I guess still, if you're still going to the office, you head into the office and you're just starting to try get your team to figure out what's going on. Then one of your developers comes and says, I really need to have an urgent coffee with you. And you're in the middle of this bug, but you can see this has to happen now, this conversation. And they tell you that, listen, I've just got an offer that I don't think I can refuse, and I want to leave the team. So now you've got two things on your mind. Like, I need to sort out this bug. I need to convince this engineer to stay in the team somehow. And your CEO calls you and says they need an update on that project that they've been asking for, that they need to be finished in 3 months. But you know it takes 3 years to finish that project. So now you've got some other thing you need to handle. And all these things keep coming at you. And if you're not very careful about how you manage your time, it can be too overwhelming. So the advice I often give people is you need to look at it from 3 perspectives. The first one is, what are the high priority items that I absolutely need to deal with myself? No one else can touch that. It needs to be done now, and I'm the only one who can sort of be involved in doing that. Those are the things you need to be looking at. Then you need to look at what are the high priority items that need to be done now, but I can get help from people in my team. Because then you can delegate those to your team, and you can also help your team grow by picking up those tasks. Then there's things that are, okay, it's high priority, but it can be addressed in 2 days or 3 days from now, or even weeks from now. So that we just park for now and put away. So if you look at things from that perspective all the time, then you always are looking at your list as these are the things I need to do, these are the most important things, and these are the things my team can pick up and can help with, and then these are the things we can drop for later. And you always want to look at things possibly on a daily basis, at looking at things that way, and then you manage your mind, your time better. It will always be overwhelming in any case, but at least there's some form of system that you're using and structure. And then, assuming you need to have all the answers, this is somewhat related to the one where you're kind of making all the technical decisions, but looking at it from a different perspective. So the mistake here is assuming because you're the leader, you can't not know something. So if someone comes and asks you a question, or if you're in a team meeting and someone throws a question at you, and you actually don't know the answer, then you end up trying to come up with a fake story or fake answer that's not quite correct because you don't want to embarrass yourself by not knowing. That's actually the wrong approach. You actually want to be able to be vulnerable enough and open enough with your team to say, actually, I don't know what the answer is. I can get the answer for you. I can think about it and figure it out and get the answer for you later. Or why don't we as a team try figure out, like, does anyone have any ideas or anything? And you actually collaborate and work with your team on trying to get the answer. There's nothing wrong with being a leader and not knowing something. What's important is being able to facilitate getting to the solutions and the answers for those problems. And then leadership can also end up leading you to isolating yourself and becoming lonely. Why this happens is by nature, there's a degree of separation that gets created when you become a leader in a team and your team. Previously, you were an individual contributor. You worked with people when they went for lunch. If you're still working in the office, when they went for lunch, you often went for the same lunch breaks together. You would be discussing different things, whether it's work stuff or even life stuff. Even if it's in a remote work setting, individual contributors will often jump on calls together, pair program, or discuss stuff. And you're often maybe sometimes not there. You're in another strategy session, or you're dealing with other things, or you're involved in hiring and everything. And what you quickly notice that your connection with people is a little bit separated. Also, the problems you're solving are very different. It's not problems that, so for an individual contributor, you can easily find another individual contributor and say, I need help, this is what I'm dealing with. As an engineering leader, if your problem is two people on your team having a conflict, you aren't really going to go to someone on the team and say, let's, how do we figure out this conflict thing? So the solution to this falls depending on your structure and your team size. If you're a bigger company, there are likely to be other engineering leaders in your company. So those should become your peers because they are in the same situation as you. They're solving the same problems as you. So some other engineering leader will have another team, you have your team, and you can chat about, oh, this is the problems I'm having, and then they can help you with some ideas they have, and you can help them with other ideas. So those become your peers and help you. You want to make that group the one that helps you to separate yourself from becoming isolated. If you do work at a small company, sometimes it happens. The last company I was working at, it was like that. You are the only engineering leader at the company. My advice is find engineering leaders at other companies. Find communities that maybe are about engineering leadership. And if you join those communities, or if you're at a conference like this, if you meet people who are doing the same role as you, and you connect, and you can always maybe meet up once a month or just jump on a call once a month, and you can discuss how are you structuring your team, what are the biggest issues you're facing, and you can relate that way and help each other. What you don't want is to almost just feel like you're just in a corner by yourself and you're very lonely. And then another common mistake, especially for engineers, is thinking people are the same. As engineers, we like to solve problems with one nice solution. So think of the majestic function that you can write that can take many inputs and always produce a result. And we assume that, oh, okay, so we can do the same with people. So if someone comes with a problem today and you give them a solution and you solve it and they are very happy, someone else could come with that same problem, you give them the exact same solution, and that person could be so angry and leave the company because people are very different. We all come from different backgrounds. We're all in a different state of our life at this point, and we all have different career aspirations going forward. So the best leaders know how to understand their people very well and understand their motivations and things that frustrate them and their career aspirations to be able to deal with them in the way they prefer. So if you think of it from a sport coaching perspective, we will go back to that initial analogy. If someone made a mistake while the Springboks were playing, it's very possible that Rassie could have shouted at them at halftime in front of the whole team because they know that person gets motivated by being shouted at like that. But then another person making the same mistake, perhaps Rassie looks at it and just does nothing because they know that person is very sensitive and perhaps doesn't want to be shouted at. And they perhaps know maybe that person is very self-directed and knows they made that mistake, and they're going to compensate for it in the second half because that person understands themselves that way. So always understand that people are different, and solutions cannot be just like plug and play because it worked with someone else, it's going to work with another individual. And then the final one is around not getting feedback from your team. Leadership can be very challenging because feedback comes at a very slow rate for the actions you're adding. Individual contributor perspective again, you come in the morning, you pick up a task, you work on it. By midday, you could have released it, it could be in production. Done, you're happy. You've already received feedback that, okay, it's working in production. A day or two later, perhaps people are actually using the feature and you now even have user feedback on how the feature is working. That is very quick feedback. So individual contributors are constantly satisfied about like where they are and the tasks they're working. As a leader, if you sit down in a one-to-one with an individual you're managing and you give them advice about how to grow their career or something, in 6 months' time, you have no idea whether that advice you gave them worked. If it did, and they're now doing the things, you still have no idea whether it was because of you, or it was because of a book they're reading, or because of a friend who helped them. It's very difficult to know whether it's because of you that everything is moving in that direction it's going. One of the best ways to help reduce that challenge of like constantly not knowing where things are or what the feedback is to ask for feedback from the people who you actually are leading. So frequently you should be asking people for feedback. My advice is try ask for feedback that doesn't result in a yes or no answer. So don't ask, is there anything I could do better for you? Because someone will be like, no, you're doing everything fine. If you switch the question just to something as, name 3 things that I could do for you that are going to make your life better at the company. It's going to be very tricky for someone to say, oh, I've got nothing, you know. They're probably going to come up with 3 things that are probably useful. So it's always a bit of a better way to get the feedback. But what's important is do that frequently, like as much as you can from your team. It then gives you a signal of whether things are actually getting action because of your influence on the team. All right, so I added this slide at the end of all those mistakes and everything around leadership because it can also seem like leadership is very overwhelming when you hear all those things that you have to consider and everything you can go through, especially the example around the whole CEO and guy wants to leave and bug in one day. However, if you are passionate about leadership and it's a space you want to step in, you really have room to make a massive impact on people's lives, because you're responsible for their careers and their growth. The example I like to use and how I think where I felt like the impact has been the most for me is when it's like very young engineers or graduates that have come into a team and they literally don't know anything about like the working world, and you work with them and you help them early on in their career. Then like a few years later you look at them and you see them succeeding perhaps even further than you even got to in your career. And that for me is like impact. So if you are passionate about leadership and it excites you, that's what you can get out of it. So I'd always encourage people to not shy away from it because it may feel very overwhelming. On the side of like helping people and helping their careers and everything, it's really, really impactful. And if there are any people, I think quite a number of people did lift their hands for, I want to get into leadership in the future. My advice is this is the time you want to start actually practicing something about leadership. Because right now you don't have the title that is set upon you to say you're a leader and you're expected to do all these things. So if you work at a company, at your companies there's a few things you can do that sort of give you a bit of an exposure to leadership, but you don't really have the title. So example is, if your company is hiring a lot and there are people who are joining, maybe step into onboarding a lot of those new people. That helps with like learning about leadership. If your company does internship programs, ask your manager if you can run the internship program from start to finish. So all the way from like sourcing the candidates, like how do we show up at the universities? That's like how do we sell our company? How do we interview the candidates when they come in? And when the candidates come in that you've selected, be their sort of point person and manager. So you have the one-to-ones and check-ins with them. It gives you full exposure into what like management and leadership could be like. If your company is starting a new complicated project and you've been there for a while and you've got the respect, ask maybe, can I lead this project? Yes, with support from everyone else, but can I be the go-to person for this project? That already starts giving you the exposure into like a lot of the leadership skills you need in the future. The best way for you to prepare for all those things and to not make those mistakes I was stating is to almost see it in action, but without like the major responsibility for it. And of course, if you are already in that space, there's a lot of material out there now that you can use to learn. Like back in the day, there was lots of material about engineering, like technology expertise, so lots of books about frameworks and programming languages and stuff. The world has opened up a bit more around technology leadership materials and stuff. So just to wrap up my talk, I've got a few resources that are useful for anyone who wants to step into sort of leadership or is already there and is just looking for how else can I learn and grow. And I look at it from like different perspectives. So there's quite a number of newsletters and podcasts that are out there. Some of them are like once a week, some of them are once a month. I'm self-selling the Tech Leadership newsletter right at the top. The Tech Leadership community I mentioned, we have a newsletter. Ours goes out once a month. It's a curated list of leadership content we found online that we believe helps leaders learn and grow and from different aspects. And we release that once a month. Again, if you go to techleadership.co.za, there's a newsletter link there, and then you can just put your email and you get the next one will go out next Tuesday. It goes out after the meetup. And then Level Up by Pat Coa, also a great one, very similar. Goes out once a week actually, so recommend that, plus the other ones, yeah. I will, if anyone wants these, we can always chat afterwards. I'll probably also just drop them on one of the places I write as a whole set of resources and share them. Books. Quite a number of books. There's even more. On the Tech Leadership site, there's a books link also with more books that we recommend. These are books I've read that have really made an impact in my sort of leadership and engineering leadership career. To single out a few, Resilient Management by Lara Hogan is a great book because it talks about the topic which is often challenging for people when they get asked, like, how do you grow engineers? Like, what's your strategy to grow engineers? So she goes into the different aspects around coaching and what coaching is and how the different ways to grow engineers, coaching, mentorship, and sponsoring, and talks about how to apply them, the differences between them, the differences between engineers, who need them at what stage in their career, and how to actually apply them. So really enjoyed that book. Talking with Tech Leads by Pat Coa, also a great book. He interviewed lots of tech leads across the world. So it's about 3 or 4 pages per tech lead about how they approach leadership, the problems they ran into, and how they do it. So if you're looking for a book which you can kind of pick up and then drop and then pick up on another day, perfect book for that. And then for those who know about Netflix sort of approach to engineering, which culture and everything, which can be controversial with some of the things they do. But if you are interested in how they've done it and it's a bit different, powerful, was a great book around that. And then finally, meetups and conferences similar to this. They are leadership-oriented spaces and communities out there. I've already talked about Tech Leadership Meetup. I'm not going to plug it again. Lead Dev, great group of people. It's leaddev.com. They've got conferences, well, more in Europe and America. But because of COVID, they started pushing their content a lot online. So they started doing a lot of stuff online and interviewing people. So they've got like lots of content, articles and videos on many topics around leadership. You can spend the whole day just like in that space. And you can subscribe and get each time they release new content. And if you ever get an opportunity to go to one of their conferences overseas, that is also amazing. Then finally, I know we all want money. But don't step into a leadership role for money purposes. It is, as I said, it's such an important, impactful thing that you can have like a great impact on people's life if you're passionate about it and you do it well. But if you don't like it and you do it for money, it can also be detrimental to your career and the people you lead's careers. A lot of good companies now in engineering are now good enough to have parallel tracks for technical expertise and then engineering leadership. So there's a branch off at some point when you choose, okay, I feel like I prefer the leadership role and everything. And often, the technical expertise route actually compensates more, because if you think about it, technical expertise has quite a significant value for companies. So 2 things. Don't do it for money, do it for the passion. And then the other thing is, if your company doesn't have this structure yet, and you've got enough influence to go back, ask them to look at companies' career ladders that split off at some point and have a whole technical area and an engineering leadership area. Because that will really help people sort of go in the areas they're passionate about and not feel like they want to be promoted to get money. And then to conclude, maybe you've heard of these before, but I thought they'll be useful given the nature of the talk. People don't leave bad jobs, they leave bad managers or leaders. I think that's very true. And then also, for those passionate about leadership, just like sort of selling it again, there's a high chance no one will remember the feature you built in 20 years, but people do remember their managers or leaders, especially those that mentored them at the start of their career. And I'm sure all of you, whether it was for a negative or positive experience, if you look back in your career, you probably remember your early on managers or leaders and what they did for you. And that's it from me. Again, my name is Tanaka, and I will be working as an engineering manager at Swivel in the middle of May. Tech leadership, have a look at it. Join us for the next meetup if you're interested, and have a look, see if it's something you like and you want to continue joining. Sapstack, if you've got new developers at your company, or you are a new developer yourself, go to sapstack.com, search for the new developer. I'm trying to write content to help you settle down quickly in your career. And if you're on Twitter, let's connect. I'm on there as General Mutakwa. So thank you. Are there any questions? Yes.
You don't have a lot of time left, so I'm going to be quick. So I've got 2 questions. The first one is with regards to one-on-ones, right? I always wonder, what is the best structure for one-on-ones that can give you the best results? The kind of questions you want to ask, the amount of time you want to take, the cadence of these meetings. So that's my first question. And my second one is around, I'll have to look it up. You can answer the first one, sorry.
All right, cool. No worries. Yeah, great question around one-to-ones. It's really going to depend on your personality as a leader. That's just what I would say. I'm going to answer with giving how I've run mine. But before that, I want to say one-to-ones very important. Very important to have them frequently and to never skip them. It shows that you prioritize your people, and you also don't want to let problems drag on for too long. So my preferred cadence is once a week. Depends on how many people you're managing. Generally, if you've got 6 or 7 people, which I think is about the right amount of people for you to still be effective, once a week, 30 minutes. That's how I go. How I like to run mine is, it's not to say this is a fixed structure. It can vary depending on the week and what's important. But generally, the first bit is just what's going on. Tell me what's going on. How are you doing? What's going on in your life? It doesn't even have to be work-related. If someone has a pressing thing about work, usually when you ask, how are you doing, it goes straight into that. And you know, okay, today we're going to talk about something problematic about work. But it's generally let's icebreaker, how are we going, how's life and everything. Because I also use them to build relationships with people. So let's trust each other. I'll tell you what's going on in my life, what's going on in your life. Then I will use a bit of that time to find out how their week has been around work and anything they need from me around work. And then I'll give updates on what I know that they need to know or any feedback I've received about them and everything. Mm-hmm. And then also, ideally there is extra time, we'll talk about their goals. So that we've probably discussed what your career goals, what are you trying to improve on and everything. So I'm trying to keep them accountable each week. So you said you want to get better at unit testing. This week, on the pull request you put up, how was the testing? Did you run into any issues? Do you need any help and all that? But that's an easy way to say it that way. On a particular day, someone could come in and say, listen, I'm very angry at this person in the team for this, and that ends up being the whole discussion for 30 minutes. Or in another week, it can just be like, there isn't too many updates from my side or their side. The week was very stable. Then we'll talk about your goals and like making them better and everything like around that. Yeah.
Cool. I think I'll leave it for somebody else to, I can come to you afterwards.
All right, cool.
Hi, great talk, by the way.
Thanks.
Just what do you think, in your opinion, are some of the underrated soft skills to be a better leader?
Underrated soft skills. For engineers, a lot is around communication, written and verbal. Especially written. I think we focus so much on like just the code and everything, and sometimes just being able to, especially in the remote world we live in now, being able to write a message that everyone understands clearly and knows exactly what your level of emotion is and what you're trying to say is really, really underrated. And I really encourage a lot of people, early on in their career especially, get into some writing of some sort. Even if it's not, it doesn't have to be like, oh, I'm writing about deep technical concepts. It can be like about some other thing you're passionate about, but it helps you to think through, how do I write something that I'm going to put public in the world and other people are going to read it and consume it. So that's one, I think. Then there's a lot around being a team player. I think software is a team sport, and it might be obvious when I say it that way, but then I think in a lot of how other teams function is not that way. So being a team player and being able to work with other people and being able to drive things in a way where this is the best goal for the team, even if it means maybe I'm doing something that I don't really like for a day, but I'm trying to get the team to where it needs to get to, and not being a hero myself. So how do you work properly with other people? It's getting better, but the engineering space can be very toxic. So people like, it's a pull request. I put up a pull request. Like, there's a difference between, that is so stupid, what are you doing, versus, wouldn't it be better if we approach this in this way? Or have you thought about approaching it in this way? We will literally be dealing in two different ways if we did that way. But yeah.
How much time do you still have? I don't know what time the session ends, but there's a question for you on Slack.
Oh, is it? All right.
Okay, so I'm going to just read it, and then maybe you can just touch on some of it and give a more detailed answer later. Cool. So Mamo Loko is asking, how does tech leadership relate to economics? He is busy with BCom Information Tech Management and doesn't understand how the two relate. And then he has a second question about advice for a young individual that's got a recent passion. But I think let's touch on the economics and the BCom Information Management. And any thoughts on that one? I mean, it's quite a big question, isn't it?
Does anyone in the crowd have?
Love that.
Actually, I don't know. I think I have to. I'll go on Slack and just see how it was worded and everything and understand it clearly. Yeah,
maybe it's
I can't think of a direct. Correlation,
like academic
link
versus practical, you know.
Yeah, or maybe it's around, I guess, maybe he's asking around, they actually may be getting asked to study economics at school, but then they're doing a technology degree and where that fits in, maybe. But I can also chat with them and get more detail.
Okay, Mama Lokoi. You'll be spoken to on Slack.
All right, thank you.
Is there questions?